My name is Cora Hayes, and for the first decade of my adult life, I measured my existence in square feet. Not in the way a realtor might, but in the way a person gasping for air measures a breath. I lived in a succession of spaces that felt borrowed, temporary, each one a holding cell until I could afford a place where my own silence felt like peace instead of emptiness. Now, standing in the narrow hallway of my very own Trinity house in Philadelphia, with the scent of old plaster and beeswax in the air, I understand that all along, I wasn't searching for a home. I was searching for myself. The house is a relic of another time, tucked away on a cobblestone lane in Queen Village. It's a 3-story stack of rooms, one on top of the other, connected by a tight spiral staircase that creaks like a sighing old man. It's small, intimate, and entirely mine. The late afternoon sun streams through the front window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, a silent, glittering celebration. This light, this quiet, this is the harvest of a decade of relentless, solitary work. A vibration in my pocket pulls me from my reverie. My mother's name, Eleanor, glows on the screen. I let it buzz a second time before answering, my voice intentionally calm, a placid lake I've learned to cultivate over turbulent waters. Cora, honey, are you on your way? Hi, Mom. No, I'm not coming this weekend, I say, my gaze falling on a box of books I have yet to unpack. A pause, laden with the familiar weight of disappointment. But we haven't seen you in months. Your father was going to fire up the grill. Leo and Sophie are coming with the kids. We have the most wonderful news to share with you. Her voice is sweet, laced with the saccharine persuasion I know so well. It's the voice that has, for years, smoothed over every disparity, every injustice, with the silken cloth of family. I'm sorry I can't. I'm just settling something here, I reply, the understatement of the century. Settling what? Is everything all right? The concern in her voice is a tool, expertly wielded. It's not for my well-being, but for the integrity of her plan, whatever it may be. Everything is perfect, I say, and for the first time in my life, speaking to her, I mean it. I'll call you next week. I end the call before she can launch into her litany of gentle manipulations. Leaning my head against the cool, old wall, I close my eyes. The wonderful news can wait. I know, with a bone-deep certainty, that their joy has always come at my expense. Today, however, I am no longer an available currency. Today, I am finally home. Growing up in Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, was like living in a perfectly preserved photograph from a bygone era. Our town was a postcard of rolling hills, white-steepled churches, and a main street where everyone knew not only your name, but your grandfather's, too. Our house was a sturdy, sensible colonial with a sprawling backyard where the scent of my father's meticulously tended roses hung heavy in the summer air. From the outside, we were the Hayes family, solid, respectable, a pillar of the community. But inside, our home operated on an unspoken economy of attention, and I was perpetually in deficit. My brother, Leo, 2 years my senior, was the sun around which our family universe orbited. He wasn't just the firstborn, he was the only son, a fact that in my mother's eyes endowed him with a special, almost sacred significance. He was charming, handsome, and perpetually full of grand ideas that glittered with promise and fizzled out just as quickly. He was the family's great project, their most important investment. You have to understand, Cora, my mother would tell me, her hands busy kneading dough in our warm, sunlit kitchen, boys are like ships. They need a strong wind in their sails to get them out of the harbor. Girls are the harbor. Steady, reliable, always there. I didn't understand then that she wasn't complimenting my strength, she was defining my role. I was infrastructure. I was meant to be the solid ground upon which Leo's dreams were built. The dynamic was etched into the mundane moments of our lives. When I was 10, I won the countywide science fair with a project on the regenerative abilities of planarian flatworms. I had spent weeks in the basement, meticulously documenting my findings in a notebook. The day of the fair, Leo had a preseason baseball scrimmage. My parents dropped me off at the school gymnasium with a pat on the head and a hurried, "We'll try to make it for the awards, sweetie." They never did. I stood on the makeshift stage, a blue ribbon pinned to my sweater, my smile feeling stiff and unnatural as flashbulbs went off around me. I walked home alone, the ribbon clutched in my hand. When I arrived, the house was buzzing. Leo had hit a double. We went out for celebratory ice cream. My project was never mentioned. I learned to swallow my achievements like bitter pills. Getting a perfect score on my SATs was met with a distracted, "That's nice, dear," while Leo's C+ in algebra was cause for hiring an expensive tutor, a decision discussed at length around the dinner table. He was given a car for his 16th birthday, a slightly used but respectable sedan, to give him some independence. When I turned 16, I was given a timetable for the local bus line. "It builds character, Cora," my father, Robert, said, without looking up from his newspaper. It wasn't that they were cruel. Cruelty requires intent, a focused malice. This was something far more insidious. It was a complete and utter blindness to my needs, my desires, my very existence as a person separate from my function. I was the responsible one, the easy one, the one who never asked for anything. And so, I was given nothing. The breaking point, the moment the hairline fracture in my heart cracked wide open, came during my sophomore year at Temple University. I had chosen to study landscape architecture, a field that married my love of structure and nature, of creating beautiful, functional spaces. I adored it. I had worked 2 part-time jobs, one at the university library, the other at a local nursery, to supplement my partial scholarship and pay for my living expenses. I had a separate savings account, one I proudly named Tuition Fund, where I deposited every spare dollar. It was my safety net, my proof of self-reliance. One crisp October afternoon, I sat down at my small desk to pay the bill for the spring semester. I had just over $8,500 saved, more than enough to cover the cost. I logged into the online portal, entered the payment amount, and clicked Submit. Transaction failed. Insufficient funds. My breath caught in my throat. I tried again. The same message. With trembling hands, I navigated to my bank's website. My tuition account, which had held my hard-earned savings just a week before, now contained a balance of $47.18. A cold dread washed over me. I called the bank's helpline, my voice a strained whisper. The customer service representative was polite, detached. She confirmed that a withdrawal of $8,500 had been made 4 days prior. A check, she said, had been cashed at a branch in Willow Creek. It was signed by the secondary account holder, my mother. I hung up the phone and sat in the profound silence of my dorm room, the world tilting on its axis. I called her immediately. She answered on the second ring, her voice breezy and light. "Cora, I was just thinking about you. How are your classes?" "My tuition money is gone," I said, my voice flat, devoid of the storm raging inside me. "The bank said you withdrew it." There was a short pause, and then a sigh, not of guilt, but of weary exasperation, as if I were the one being difficult. "Oh, that. Honey, you have to understand. Leo has this incredible opportunity." She explained that Leo's latest venture, a gourmet, organic meal kit delivery service for dogs called Positively Delicious, needed a final injection of cash to secure a commercial kitchen space. "This is the one, Cora, I can feel it," she said, her voice filled with a desperate, manufactured optimism. "He just needed a little push. A vote of confidence." "My vote?" I whispered, the words catching in my throat. "You took my tuition money. The money I worked for every single weekend, every night, for the past year." "Don't be so dramatic," she chided, her tone shifting from sweet to sharp. "It's family money. We all chip in. You're so smart and resourceful, Cora. You can get a loan or ask for an extension. Leo doesn't have those options. His entire future is riding on this." His future. The words hung in the air between us. His future, paid for by my present. I was the harbor, and his ship had just been launched, tearing out a piece of the docks as it went. "You've always been the strong one," she continued, her voice softening again, the velvet glove sliding back over the iron fist. "He needs us. He needs our support." I didn't say another word. I didn't scream or cry or accuse. I simply pressed the end call button, severing the connection. I sat there for hours, staring at the brick wall outside my window as the afternoon sun faded to a bruised purple dusk. It wasn't just about the money. It was the absolute, crushing certainty that in the architecture of my family, I was not just a supporting beam, I was a disposable material, to be used and discarded as needed. That night, something inside me shifted. A quiet, cold resolve settled in my bones. I would not drop out. I would not fail. I would not give them the satisfaction of seeing me crumble. But I would also never, ever, be their safety net again. I went to the financial aid office the next day and applied for an emergency loan. I picked up more shifts at the nursery, my hands raw from potting soil and thorns. I ate ramen and slept in 4-hour increments. I became a ghost on campus, a shadow moving between the library, the classroom, and work. Leo's business failed in 6 months. The commercial kitchen was repossessed, the organic pet food rotted, and the investors' money vanished. My mother called to tell me the news, her voice thick with tears, expecting sympathy. All I felt was a vast, hollow emptiness. I had graduated, my diploma a testament not to my family's support, but to their neglect. And I had learned the most valuable lesson of my life. The only person I could ever truly rely on was myself. I packed my bags for Philadelphia the day after graduation and never looked back. Philadelphia greeted me not with a warm embrace, but with the gritty, unapologetic reality of a city that has seen it all. The air was thick with the smells of exhaust fumes and roasted nuts from street vendors, the sounds a constant symphony of sirens, traffic, and the murmur of a million different lives intersecting. I rented a small room in a South Philly row house with a perpetually leaky faucet and neighbors who argued in a language I didn't understand. It was anonymous, loud, and utterly liberating. Here, I was not Leo Hayes' sister. I was simply Cora. I started at the bottom rung of Keystone Historic Preservation, a firm that specialized in restoring and repurposing old buildings. My official title was Junior Associate, which was a glorified way of saying I made coffee, organized blueprints, and updated spreadsheets. I didn't mind. I saw it as an apprenticeship in a city built of brick and history, a place where the past was not bulldozed but honored. I was the first to arrive each morning and the last to leave, my lamp often the only one illuminating our small office late into the night. While my colleagues went out for happy hour, I went home to my second job, freelance landscape design for small residential projects I found online. I drafted garden plans for tiny backyards, designed rooftop terraces, and chose plants for window boxes. Each completed project, each check deposited, was another brick in the wall I was building around myself. I created a new savings account, a high-yield one that I named the Sanctuary Fund. It became my obsession. 60% of every paycheck, from my salary and my freelance work, went directly into that account. I lived on the remaining 40% with monastic discipline. I learned to patch my own clothes, to make a pot of soup last for a week, and to find joy in free pleasures, walking through Fairmount Park, reading a book by the Schuylkill River, sketching the intricate ironwork on old brownstones. There were moments of profound loneliness. I declined invitations to weddings I couldn't afford to attend, sending modest gifts instead with notes full of feigned regret. I watched friends pair off, buy homes, and start families, their lives moving along a conventional timeline while mine was on a solitary, unswerving track. Sometimes a wave of doubt would wash over me. Was this sacrifice worth it? Was I chasing a dream at the cost of living a life? But then I would remember the feeling of that empty bank account, the chilling sound of my mother's voice explaining why my needs were secondary. And I would open my banking app, look at the growing balance in my Sanctuary Fund, and the resolve would harden in me once again. This wasn't just about buying a house. It was about buying my freedom. Years passed like a blur of long days and short nights. I was promoted to lead designer, then to project manager. My name became associated with some of the firm's most successful restoration projects. I moved from the leaky room in South Philly to a small but clean apartment in Fishtown, and then to a slightly larger one in Old City. Each move was a step up, a tangible measure of my progress. The day I turned 32, the Sanctuary Fund crossed the threshold I had set for myself years ago. I walked to the bank and got a pre-approval for a mortgage. The loan officer, a kind woman with tired eyes, smiled as she stamped the paperwork. "Congratulations, Ms. Hayes. You're in a very strong position." I walked out into the bustling city streets and burst into tears, a decade of pent-up emotion finally spilling over. The house hunt became my weekend ritual. I wasn't looking for square footage or resale value. I was looking for a feeling. I walked through spacious suburban homes with manicured lawns and felt nothing. They were too big, too empty, full of rooms I would never use. I toured sleek, modern condos with floor-to-ceiling windows and felt like an intruder. They were beautiful but sterile, lacking the soul I craved. Then, one rainy Saturday, my realtor took me down a narrow, almost hidden alley in Queen Village. "It's a Trinity house," she said, unlocking an old wooden door painted a deep shade of indigo. "They're unique to Philly. A bit quirky, but full of character." I stepped inside and I knew. The air smelled of history. A narrow, winding staircase spiraled up through the center of the house, connecting the three small, stacked rooms. The living room on the first floor was cozy, with a brick fireplace and a deep-sealed window. The bedroom on the second floor was just big enough for a bed and a dresser. The third floor was a small, light-filled space that I immediately envisioned as my studio, with a door leading to a tiny rooftop deck. It wasn't a house built for entertaining large crowds or impressing visitors. It was a house built for one. A sanctuary. It was perfect. "I'll take it," I said, my voice thick with emotion. I wrote a letter to the owners, an elderly couple who had lived there for 50 years. I didn't talk about my financial qualifications. I told them about my journey, about what this house would represent to me, not just a property, but a place to finally set down roots that no one could pull up. A place to be quiet. A place to heal. 2 days later, my offer was accepted. I didn't tell my family. I didn't post a picture on social media with a caption full of exclamation points. I kept the news close to my heart, a private, precious secret. This victory was mine alone. When I held the old brass key in my hand for the first time, I felt a sense of peace settle over me, a quiet, profound rightness. I was finally, truly home. The summons came, as it always did, disguised as an invitation. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when my mother called, her voice effervescent with a joy that immediately put me on high alert. "Cora, darling, you simply must come home this weekend. We have the most incredible news, and we want the whole family to be there to celebrate." Against my better judgment, a flicker of curiosity stirred within me. I hadn't been back to Willow Creek in over a year. My communications with my family had dwindled to sporadic, superficial texts and the occasional holiday phone call. I had constructed a life for myself in Philadelphia that felt so separate, so protected, that a part of me believed I was now immune to their gravitational pull. "What's the news, Mom?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Oh no, I can't spoil it. You have to be here. It's a surprise. A wonderful, life-changing surprise for all of us." The phrase "for all of us" was the hook, and I, against my will, felt the familiar tug. And so, on a bright, crisp Saturday afternoon, I found myself driving my modest sedan down the familiar tree-lined streets of Willow Creek. The town was awash in autumnal glory, the maples blazing in shades of crimson and gold. It was achingly beautiful, and it felt like a trap. The scene at my parents' house was one of chaotic domesticity. My brother's 2 young children were running shrieking through the living room, leaving a trail of cracker crumbs in their wake. My sister-in-law Sophie looked weary, giving me a tight, fleeting smile before turning to wrangle the kids. My father was in his armchair, engrossed in a golf tournament on television, offering me a cursory nod. My mother, however, was radiant, bustling around the kitchen, her face flushed with excitement. Leo arrived an hour late, sweeping in with the breezy confidence of a man who has never had to apologize for his tardiness. He was wearing a blazer and expensive-looking jeans, a stark contrast to my simple sweater and cords. He kissed my mother, clapped my father on the shoulder, and then turned to me, a wide, conspiratorial grin on his face. "Corey, glad you could make it. You're not going to believe what we've pulled off." After a tense, hurried dinner, Leo cleared his throat and tapped his glass with a fork. "All right, everyone. The moment we've all been waiting for. He reached for a sleek leather portfolio on the sideboard and spread its contents on the dining room table. It was an architectural rendering of a massive, modern farmhouse-style home. It had a 3-car garage, a wraparound porch, and a backyard that looked bigger than a public park. The logo of a high-end property developer, Oak Ridge Estates, was printed in the corner. "Ta-da," he announced, beaming. "The new family compound." My mother clasped her hands together, her eyes shining. "Isn't it magnificent, Cora?" I stared at the rendering, a cold knot forming in the pit of my stomach. "It's a very large house," I said carefully. 5 bedrooms, Leo said, pointing to the floor plan. 1 for Mom and Dad, 1 for me, Sophie, and the kids, a guest room, a home office for me, and a beautiful suite upstairs for you, with its own balcony. I looked from the floor plan to his expectant face, then to my mother's beatific smile. The pieces began to click into place, forming a picture I didn't want to see. "It's perfect," my father chimed in, finally looking away from the TV. "The development is just 10 minutes from here. We can all be together, help each other out. We've put a deposit down to hold the lot," Leo continued, his voice dropping to a serious, businesslike tone. "And that's where you come in, Corey." He slid another document across the table. It was a mortgage pre-qualification letter from the local credit union. "The bank is ready to go. With your income and credit score as the primary applicant, we've been approved for the full amount, $750,000. The air left my lungs. The room fell silent, the only sound the distant hum of the refrigerator. They all looked at me, their faces glowing with a shared, delusional dream. They had built this entire fantasy, put down a deposit, and assigned me the lead role without ever consulting me. I was not a participant. I was a tool they needed to complete the transaction. I don't understand," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "You want me to co-sign?" "No. You want me to be the primary applicant on a $750,000 loan." "Well, of course, honey," my mother said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "Your credit is perfect. Leo's is, well, he's had some business setbacks. And your father and I are on a fixed income. You're the only one who can make this happen for the family." "Make this happen?" I found my voice, a quiet strength flowing into me from a deep, protected well. "No one asked me if I wanted this to happen. No one asked me if I wanted to live here. No one asked me if I was willing to take on that kind of debt." Leo scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. "Don't be so dramatic. We'll all chip in for the mortgage, obviously. I'll be back on my feet with my new consulting gig in no time." I looked at him, at the casual, unthinking entitlement that had defined his entire life. I looked at my parents, who saw me not as their daughter, but as a financial instrument. And I looked at Sophie, who was staring down at her lap, her knuckles white as she gripped her napkin. In her silence, I saw a reflection of my own for so many years. I took a slow, deep breath, stood up from the table, and gently pushed the paperwork back toward the center. "It's a beautiful dream," I said, my voice steady and clear. "But it's your dream, not mine." My mother's face crumpled. "Cora, how can you be so selfish? This is for the family. For all of us to be together." "Was it for the family when you took my tuition money, Mom?" The question hung in the air, sharp and glittering as a shard of glass. The color drained from her face. "We were counting on you," my father said, his voice laced with accusation. "That was your mistake," I replied, my gaze meeting his directly. "You counted on me without ever asking me. You've spent my entire life assuming I would be the harbor. You never once considered that I might want to be my own ship, with my own destination." I turned and walked toward the door, my movements calm and deliberate. I could feel their stunned, furious silence behind me. As my hand touched the doorknob, Leo's voice, laced with venom, shot across the room. "Fine. Go back to your lonely little life in the city. See who's there for you when you need something. You're turning your back on your family." I paused at the threshold but didn't turn around. "No, Leo," I said softly, more to myself than to him. "I'm finally turning toward myself." I walked out into the cool autumn air, closed the door gently behind me, and didn't look back. The drive back to Philadelphia was a blur of headlights and dark country roads. But for the first time, I wasn't running away from something. I was driving toward it. I was driving home. The first few weeks in my house were an exercise in quiet reclamation. I moved with a deliberate, unhurried pace, as if learning the rhythms of a new, gentler life. I unpacked my books, arranging them not alphabetically, but by the feeling they gave me. I bought a single, comfortable armchair and placed it by the front window, creating a small nook for reading and watching the world go by on my quiet, cobblestone street. I spent an entire weekend stripping layers of old wallpaper from the third-floor studio, revealing the original, time-worn brick beneath. Each small act of labor felt like a prayer, a way of infusing the space with my own history, my own intentions. The silence that had once felt like a void in my tiny city apartments was different here. It was a full, resonant silence, punctuated by the house's own gentle language. The creak of the spiral stairs, the soft groan of the pipes, the whisper of the wind against the old window panes. It was the sound of peace. My family's reaction to my departure from Willow Creek was a predictable storm of digital outrage. My mother left a string of tearful, wounded voicemails. My father sent a single, terse text message: "You have made a serious miscalculation." Leo, true to form, took his grievances public. He posted a vague but pointed message on social media about how some people forget where they come from and choose selfishness over loyalty, a post that garnered a flurry of sympathetic comments from his friends and distant relatives. I read them, I listened, and then I deleted them all. I did not engage. I did not defend myself. I had said everything I needed to say in my parents' dining room. Now, my energy was for me. It was for painting my bedroom the color of a pale dawn sky, for planting a window box with hardy, hopeful pansies, for learning the name of the elderly woman next door who always had a kind smile for me. My life had become a small, beautiful, handcrafted thing, and I guarded it fiercely. One Thursday evening, as I was curled in my armchair with a cup of tea, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "Cora, it's Sophie. I got a new number. I just wanted to say, I get it. And I'm sorry for how they treated you. For how I said nothing." I stared at the message, my heart giving a small, tight squeeze. I had never expected an apology, least of all from her, a woman I had always seen as a silent accomplice to the family's dynamics. I typed back slowly, choosing my words with care. "Thank you for saying that, Sophie. It means a lot." A few minutes later, another message appeared, this time with a photo attached. It showed her two children sitting on the floor of a sparsely furnished room, happily building a tower of cardboard boxes. The walls were bare, the light a little dim, but the children's faces were bright with laughter. "We moved out," the text read. "Got a small apartment on the other side of town. It's a struggle, but it's quiet. He's looking for work. I found a remote admin job. For the first time, I feel like I can breathe." I read the message 3 times, a slow, dawning empathy washing over me. I had always seen her as part of Leo's world, but now I saw her as a woman trapped in it, just as I had been. She hadn't been the harbor, she'd been anchored to a ship. "My door is always open if you and the kids are ever in Philly," I wrote back. No pressure. Just an invitation. 3 weeks later, on a sunny Saturday, Sophie's slightly battered hatchback pulled up in front of my little house. She got out, looking tired but lighter than I had ever seen her. The kids tumbled out after her, their eyes wide with curiosity as they took in the city street. "I wasn't sure if you meant it," she said, a hesitant smile on her face. "I always mean what I say," I replied, opening my indigo door wide. The day was simple and perfect. The kids were enthralled by the spiral staircase, climbing up and down until they were dizzy with laughter. I showed Sophie my small rooftop deck, where my pansies were blooming bravely in the autumn chill. We didn't talk about Leo or my parents. We talked about her job, about a new park she had discovered near her apartment, about the funny thing her son had said the day before. We talked like friends. As the afternoon light began to fade, Sophie gathered the sleepy children. At the door, she paused and turned to me, her eyes shining with an unshed tear. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "seeing you stand up to them, it made me realize I could too. I never knew a woman was allowed to just leave." "Thank you, Cora." I squeezed her hand. We're both learning, Sophie, I said. After she left, I stood in my quiet living room, the house filled with the phantom echoes of children's laughter. And I realized that family wasn't about blood or obligation. It was about respect. It was about showing up for each other in ways that were honest and true. It was about creating spaces where people felt safe enough to be themselves. My relationship with the rest of my family remains a vast, quiet distance. Perhaps one day, a bridge will be built across it, but it will have to be built from their side, with materials of understanding and remorse that they may never possess. I have made my peace with that. Last night, I sat on my rooftop deck, a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, watching the city lights glitter against the velvet darkness. My life is not large or loud or impressive by the standards I grew up with. It is small, and it is quiet, and it is wholly mine. I am not a harbor waiting for a ship to come in. I am the lighthouse, rooted and strong, casting my own light out into the world. And for the first time in my life, I feel completely, unshakably at peace. I am finally home.